All right, welcome back to the Joe Ellis Effect. I am Joe Ellis, and I want to talk about some things that have been going on since the last month, I guess. I've been here in Austin. First of all, thanks to everyone who's been listening and for the feedback I've gotten. A couple comments definitely say that I was need to liven up a bit. So here I am trying to be alive. A lot of times when I record these episodes, it's like the end of a day and it's a spare moment that I have to kind of jump in and hit record. And I think the last couple I've done late at night. And for some reason, being in an Airbnb that's in an apartment complex with neighbors and stuff, I'm the only one in the space. And so I talk very quietly as if I'm having like an evening conversation with someone. And, the pilot demeanor in me is just chill. And, I could be flying towards a mountain and be like, well, folks, we're about to fly into this mountain and it's going to kill us. And then some of us will go to heaven, and that's great. Some of us might not, and that's okay too. We all go our separate ways. I hope you enjoyed this flight. Please give us 5 stars. Like I just feel like I don't know. I It did make me reflect a little bit about that because I had posted something like this on X or something like, where did the playful and silly Joe go with everything that's been going on? And it's funny, I'm doing comedy at night and stuff and all these different things. And yet it's all mission focused. It's all very much like, go, go, go. I'm going to do this and I'm going to accomplish that. And I'm going to network with these people. And so comments like that, plus my own personal reflection, have really made me realize that, yeah, like I need to liven up a bit. Now, I'm not going to be someone I'm not. So, like, me livening up a bit might just be a little less muted version of what you saw in the last couple of episodes or whatever. But it's just, yeah, it's weird because you're talking to yourself. I don't have like an audience member or a person I'm talking to. So I just have to remember that, like, assume I'm talking to someone other than myself. And be a little bit more animated, have a little bit more fun, a little bit more relaxed, do a bunch of drugs before each episode. That would help. No, but I do have some things I just kind of wanted to cover. There's so much going on. Welcome back. It's been a crazy week or two where, it feels like, especially in the news, it feels like we're living in a stand-up like special. If not a stand-up special, it feels like we're living in a real comedy. Like it's just insane, the stuff that's been going on in the news lately. With like how Trump responded to Rob Reiner's murder, how Erica Kirk walked out on stage 3 months after the tragic killing of her husband, and she walked out to what looked like a WWE like intro, like fireworks and all kinds of crazy stuff happening, and endorsing JD Vance for president. And I'm not here to tell anyone how to process grief. We all do in a different way. Trauma for sure, like especially me after the crash rumor and being kicked out of the military. I hit, the media right away, and I was just doing interview after interview after interview, and I didn't process it, and it took some time to do that quietly, when I'm off camera. So I don't necessarily fault, her approach. It's just the reality TV apparatus around it, I think, is what's weird about it. How Turning Point is doing, like I said, this weird WWE intro of her coming on stage and stuff, and it's just strange. I don't think her appearing in the media is strange, or her being strong and being outspoken and not looking quote unquote sad enough, which I can't believe people would say. So I'm not really faulting that aspect at all. Like when you have a tragedy or you have something that really impacts you, sometimes having a mission or a focus, helps you compartmentalize that. So I totally identify with the idea of, I'm going to go out here and do these things and make change in the world as a way to process, this huge thing that happened in her life that was terrible and shouldn't have happened. But the stuff around it is what's weird. It feels very much like Real Housewifey like type production around it. And so that's just a little strange. But, we all do our different things. Grinding in Austin still. I am still here doing my thing. I went to a Joe Rogan and Friends show at the Mothership, and he did a Q&A at the end, and I stood up and asked a question, so that was fun. I'll get into that. What else? What else is going on? I think that's about it. I've got a new show I'm producing at the Creek in the Cave. It's a club here in Austin, and I pitched a late night style comedy show that I'll be piloting, piloting, January 26th, in the new year, right before I go home and figure out what I'm going to do with my house. Oh, I'll give you some updates about that too. So let's just jump right into it. I've been hitting the clubs here a lot and going, open mics, last minute spots. Like just last night, actually, I was at the Vulcan and I got to do a 5-minute spot. Just they needed someone, so I showed up. They call it barking. I barked some people in, 4 or 5 people, just offering to show my tits or whatever they would do to come into a comedy show. And it was pretty cool. Like I followed John Carden, who is a local Austin comedian that's been doing work with Big J. Okerson, which is pretty cool. Sean Gardini was there, and that was really neat to see him. And Kurt Metzger was supposed to come in, but it kind of fizzled out, so I don't think he ended up dropping by. I had to go home because after I did my spot, I was supposed to go to the Circuit of Americas today. I had signed up for a high performance driving event where you bring your own car. In my case, my Audi RS7. I just put on J-hook slotted rotors and new EBC blue stuff pads, like a really nice street track setup for a road course. And unfortunately, last night on my way home from the Vulcan, I took a detour because I needed to get some brake fluid and some other things just to have it in case something goes wrong at the track. And so I was like, all right, well, I'll swing this way, a place I've never gone. Down, I think it's Anderson Loop Circle here in Texas. And I went down that road towards a Walmart because it was late and I needed somewhere that had fluids that was open. And there was like this railroad track section that I crossed over, and either I was slightly off lane or I don't know what it was because I couldn't see that there was anything in the road, but it felt like I hit like the most massive pothole. If not a pothole, it was like a concrete step up of layers of concrete. Something happened. I hit it with my front left tire right before going over the railroad tracks, and immediately I could hear from inside the car with music playing, I could hear air like it was just an immediate bust, and my tire pressure immediately went, immediate loss of pressure. Please pull over. There was a Chevron station. I pulled over, and unfortunately, at 9:30 at night, when you bust a tire for a 22-inch Audi wheel, you're not getting one before 6 a.m. the next morning. I mean, I don't think you're getting any tire that late, but definitely I wasn't going to get one. And so I couldn't go. And I was really disappointed because I was like, I did all this work. I spent all this money, like getting the brakes and everything just perfect on this car. Cleared my schedule for today to have all day to be at the track and just have a blast. And stuff happens, And I reframed it as, once I kind of got over the shock of I might not get my reservation fee back for that event, which was $800. I spent like $3,000 on the brakes, which, they're still on the car. So it's not like that was wasted. I can go to another track event soon if I can, but just everything. It was a lot of prep and everything to get it ready. And because it's my daily driver, I don't have like a spare, expensive Audi wheel and tire ready to go. And so I called this morning as soon as shops opened, trying to find a tire, like, oh, maybe I can get there and do half the event. Because I had an instructor reserved and everything that I had to pay for because I wanted to be taught how to go around this course. I've never been on this course before. And it was going to be a really cool experience because I love just learning. And I did this recently at Summit Point in West Virginia, which will be on the documentary, by the way, because they were there recording it. But I called shops, and I could not find a tire. I usually use Discount Tire, so I went to them and said, hey, look, I cannot find this tire anywhere. It says you all have one, but it says it could be days away. Can you call around? And they called all around. They checked their national inventory, and they had one in stock in Texas, of all places. So lucky there, except it's in Dallas. And it's Saturday, and they won't have the tire from Dallas to Austin until Monday or Tuesday. Most likely Tuesday with the holiday week. Everything's just slower right now. And he said that Continental, so it's a Continental brand tire. Uh, it's back ordered on that specific tire size until who knows when. And this was the last tire in the nation that he could find. So I'm lucky in that sense that I did find a tire and I don't have to replace all the other three, because if I bought these tires in August after the last track event, if I had to replace with a different kind, I'd have to replace the other three, and they're like $350 a pop. So, we're jumping into a huge expense, and I have three good tires on the car. So unfortunately, there was nothing I could do to get me on the track today that either A, made sense, or B, I had enough time. So I couldn't go. So I looked at my options and I found a rental car for $20 a day at the airport. So instead of taking Ubers between now and Wednesday or Tuesday, because it's like $30 to get downtown every time I go down for a show on an Uber, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna burn up so much money just taking Ubers back and forth. So I went for the least expensive option, which is getting an economy car out of the airport for rental, and it's $20 a day. And I'm like, well, if I do, that's one Uber anywhere in this town is $20. So it's worth it just to get the car, so that way I can make multiple trips, because I'm still doing spots at night, and I've got Kill Tony signups Monday, and I got my friend Lauren. Her birthday is tonight, and she wanted me to come downtown to a restaurant to celebrate. And so there's just so many things I wanted to do. So I needed a car. So that was unfortunate. It really sucked, but hopefully the wheel is still in play and like still okay, and it didn't crack or cause any issues or bend the wheel. It looked okay, but you just never know if a wheel will hold air until you put a tire on it. So that was my fun. What else? Oh, the spot at the Vulcan. Yeah, that was really fun. I did 5 minutes, and one of the guys afterwards that was in the audience came up and was like, hey, I remember hearing about that plane crash and seeing you and like being blamed for it. So it's wild, I'm still reaching people. I did try this new thing recently where I did it at the open mic last week at Creek in the Cave. I asked the audience if I was the first, raise your hand if I'm the first trans person you've ever met in person. And 2 people. And there was only like 12 or so people. So it's not like there was a lot of people, but there's 2 people raised their hand. And that just reminded me, like, a huge part of why I'm doing this is for that. It's the visibility of a trans person that is not thought of when people think of trans people. And so that reaffirmed like part of my mission of why I'm here, and using comedy to illustrate, hey, look, a lot of you never met a trans person before, let alone been hurt by one, and using that in my jokes as parallels to other things that like we don't care about, but yet hurts people all the time, and just telling my story in a funny way, the reason why I'm here. And so I got caught up for a while, like just trying to write jokes that were specifically funny. But then I remembered a little bit more about my why, and kind of shifted back to punching up some of that material and trying to make that material even better, with some new stuff coming in. So it's been fun. I've been doing a lot of writing and a lot of testing of different things. Pretty much all my material last week at Creek in the Cave open mic was new. And then a couple weeks before that, I tried like a new 90-second bit about, the trans grenades and throwing those around, and, that shocking people and stuff. And it's just been fun. It's been a lot of fun here. I'm not wearing my wig today. This is my hair. It's still growing out. I also had a hair transplant to kind of fix my hairline. And so that's still growing out. And so, if I wear a beanie or a hat, it looks pretty nice and framed, but still a little wacky hairline until that all gets healed and grows back in, because they also had to cut some, and they cut some out of the back, and it's like 2,500 hair follicles. But anyway, it's, the week of Hanukkah, and so that's been fun, saying my prayers and stuff. I never thought that I would get more when I post any kind of video or anything with me wearing my, Star of David necklace. It's funny, especially on TikTok, I get more Jew hate than I do trans hate. That's weird to me. Like, you think, oh, I'm trans, everyone's gonna have an opinion about that or hate you for that or whatever. And a lot of them do. But right now it's weird to see. And what they'll do, even on Twitter, what they'll do is they'll like take just a picture of this area, my chest, and then zoom in on the necklace and like red circle it and be like, what's this about? And like, it's so weird to me. Like, I don't know. I'm still not even fully converted yet. So it's crazy. Like, I feel like I should be like done with my conversion if I'm getting so much Jew hate already. Like, doesn't that like clap out of the process, you know? Just wild, just wild. And so that's some of my new material too, is like, you know, which is harder, becoming a woman or becoming trans. And yeah, I mean, becoming a woman or becoming a Jew. And becoming a Jew is harder. Yeah, I have to take a year of classes. I have to be interviewed by 3 different rabbis. Still might not make it, but to become a woman, I just say I feel like one, and into the bathroom I go. That's how that bit starts. And I actually just like walk off on stage towards the side, like just into the bathroom I go. It was fun. It's fun, and it worked. It got some laughs in the room and stuff. So I think there's something there. And then what I do is I take those parallels and say like, oh, actually, you know, becoming trans is much more like becoming a Christian. Like they don't do any background checks. There's no gatekeeping. And then I talk about like the reputation of youth pastors versus trans people and how that's actually a little bit worse, you know, and that's when I do the raise your hand thing and then, you know, talk about that. And so like it's just been interesting playing with different dynamics. I listened to Steve Martin's Born Standing Up Audible a couple times because it's short, it's like 4 hours. So I've listened to it a couple times. And just hearing about some of the quirky anti-humor and physicality stuff that he would do, and so that kind of inspired me to try new things and try like just different stuff with the audience versus set up punchline, you know, tag, set up punchline tag, you know, just typical joke structure. I'm like, I want to be a little bit different, and so some of my act out stuff is like that too, like the you know, I do the joke where I get down and, you know, look like I'm praying, and then, but this is how Catholics pray, and I do like a blowjob, you know, visual, and you know, the idea of that joke is that you can't pray your spouse to become gay any more than you can pray people to be straight, and so it's once again, it's like it's a slight like TED Talkish like conclusion to that joke. I want to hit people with humor, but then I want to also educate them in the process, and I don't specifically try to educate people. I go for the humor first, but I think my reflection when I do it out loud, I reflect out loud like, can't pray him gay any more than you can pray him straight, is my reflection on what I just did. And that's something Mike Birbiglia talks about, is that storytelling and jokes are about the same. And the only difference is like in a story, it's a little bit of plot and then how you feel about that. And in a joke, it's the punchlines are like how you feel about the plot. And then the reflection and then the audience laughing is them identifying with the story. Probably didn't do that justice, but it's a lot of Ira Glass influence when he had him on his podcast. And I don't know, just something about hearing a great storyteller like Ira Glass and a great comedian like Mike Birbiglia, who does a lot of story-driven comedy, talk back and forth, and that's what I like. I like more storytelling. You know, Dane Cook was like that too. He would tell these longer stories that had, you know, just funny aspects throughout, and he was much more physical on stage too, which made it hilarious. And so I like using that because it's a lot of my like my influences. Like Dane Cook was a huge one, and all these other comedians, of course, too. Well, that was a long ramble. Let's see what else we got here. I went to Joe Rogan and Friends at the Mothership, and I will be honest, someone I met went to one. Now, I went to one, like, I think a month or two ago, last time I was in town, and it was good. He didn't do a Q&A or anything. And so someone in passing was like, oh, we were just at Joe Rogan and Friends, and he did like a Q&A at the end, and people could just ask questions. And that really piqued my interest, you know, because I'm trying to be, you know, trying to build that name recognition to someone like him. Because A, the Mothership, but B, his podcast and his audience. And so I was like, what if I bought a ticket to one of his shows if he does one? And if he happens to do a Q&A, what would I ask him? And I did. I bought a ticket. Like I saw them, it was on a Thursday. They're like, oh, Joe's going to do a show on Tuesday. tickets available now. And so I bought it immediately. And yeah, it's funny. Like I thought a lot about this. Like, how can I ask a question that doesn't just try to make it about me, but also gives just enough to make him curious to ask about me, but also I don't want to just stand up and be like, "Hey, I'm this person that this thing happened to, and I'm trans, and let me on your podcast, please." You know? So I was like, well, he talks about AI a lot, especially with like Elon Musk, like the idea of him buying Twitter, say free speech. And because the crash rumor about me happened on Twitter, and I didn't even have an account at the time, I thought, well, maybe I could ask him about that because that's related to what happened to me, but it's not me just bringing me up to bring me up. I'm bringing me up to talk about the question I want to ask. And I thought that might be a clever way to, mention myself, but also ask a question that is like an educated question that I would be curious what his answer is. Like if I was in person, I'd be curious what he says. Like based on what happened to me, how do you feel about this? And so I did. And so the question was, and I wrote it down because you can't take your phones in or anything. So I wrote it down on paper and memorized it. It goes like this. So actually he was like, and I was waiting because I've seen his set before. So I kind of knew when it was about to end. I'm just waiting. And as soon as it ended, he goes, all right, anyone, let's do some questions or something like that. He said, and I immediately like shot up out of my seat and raised my hand. So that way I could get my question first of all. And also I wanted to make a statement and be the first one. And in the military, you stand up when you ask questions. That's just how it is. You stand up at attention, you ask your question, and then you wait for your answer. Of course, he immediately said, sit back down. And I said, well, earlier this year, I was the target of a viral conspiracy that put my whole family in danger, and I didn't even get anything else out of it. Viral conspiracy on Twitter that put my whole family in danger, and I didn't even get. And then the next part was going to be, do you think with AI we can slow down misinformation online while still protecting free speech? That was going to be the whole thing. It was like less than 7 seconds. Like I had timed it so that way it'd be quick and not be too long-winded where he would just shut me up. But I couldn't get past viral conspiracy that put my whole family in danger before he was like, what conspiracy? And so it kind of caught me off guard because I didn't get to finish the question. So then I wasn't really prepared to just shoot right back. So I said, well, there was the crash in DC and I was blamed for it. And he said, well, didn't everyone die on that? Like, doesn't make any sense. And I was like, well, yeah, at first they thought it was me, but then I said it wasn't. And they found out that I'm trans and converting to Judaism and I'm a Black Hawk pilot. And he's like, you're a trans Jew Black Hawk pilot? How many of those can you be? Like, can there be? Or something like that. He was like, well, that's why you should. He said a couple other things. I couldn't keep up because he was saying things and I was focused on what I wanted to say and people were laughing and it like, because he was like riffing and joking and stuff. And so I was trying to thread a needle of, I could have just gone full riff and joked with him, but I kind of want to stay focused on the question I wanted to ask and the seriousness of it and it not just be, I stood up just to get you to talk about me to riff, because I've done that in a bunch of comedy shows or made myself known because they've either asked or pointed me out. And I've had that interaction with so many comedians at the Mothership and they're fun and it's great. I think it's a little overkill lately and I need to chill out with that. But that aside, I didn't want it to just end on not asking the question. And so I didn't riff with him. I just kind of tried to be level-headed, let him do the riffing, and then kind of like Kill Tony. Like I really did not jump in unless they gave me the opportunity. And so he said, well, that's why you should just post and ghost. Don't read the comments. And I said, I didn't even have a Twitter. And he said, you didn't even have a Twitter? Like, like responding to that. And I said, yeah, and now I'm suing because of it. And he's like, oh, you're like a suing bitch or something like that. I don't know. He tried to say something funny and I couldn't tell if he was trying to be funny or if he thought it was ridiculous that I existed and I was going to be suing and all these things like in his front row of his comedy show. But, it trailed off and he moved on and answered a whole bunch of questions. But at the end, he came back around and said, good luck with your case, and high-fived me. So that told me that I stuck with him at least through the duration of the Q&A. But maybe he went and Googled that event, or even if he didn't, the next time he sees a headline about me or something about me, whether it's club or comedy, he'd be like, "Oh, that's that person who said, XYZ or whatever." So like, of course, the best case scenario is I would have stood up, said, "Hey, this thing happened to me. It was terrible." Asked my question. I did ask my question, and he said that, well, most of the accounts online are fake, and until you get rid of those, like 80% of bots, we'll always have this issue. He didn't really say if it was possible that AI could do it. And of course, why would he know if it's possible or not? But he didn't really humor that aspect of it. He just said, like, look, the biggest problem is that they're all bots, and that's why this stuff takes off like wildfire. True, but the people who started the rumor about me and the ones who perpetuated it, those were all huge accounts that were not bots, including people like Ann Coulter, and then newspapers started picking it up. Like, this went beyond a bot farm. This was something that someone pushed, which is why it had legitimate legs for so long and actually caused a real impact to me. And so but like, I couldn't say all that. But best case scenario, of course, he'd be like, "Oh my God, that's crazy. I should have you on my podcast," right? Which is ridiculous to think that would happen, but you never know. Like, you just got to jump in and ask. But that did not happen. Worst case scenario, he'd be like, sit the F down, like, and just, use me as like a punchline and then move on. And like, I wouldn't even get it all out. So middle of the road is what happened. I got to say everything I wanted to say, plus a whole bunch of other things. Plus we riffed and he riffed and I laughed and it was fun and jovial and all that good stuff. And then he high-fived me at the end. When I was the first question, there was like 20 questions or more. Then he still high-fived me at the end, said good luck. So best case didn't happen, worst case didn't happen. So it's not too bad. And like I said, if I've been imprinted on his memory, not by name. Maybe he didn't think twice about me after he left the stage. But if he does see anything about me again, it will be more prominent in his mind, I think. And so that's the best I could do. Like, short of, standing outside and waiting for him to come out just to be like, "I should be on your podcast," and being like some crazy person. I feel like that was the best way to go about it. I wasn't super pick-me-ish. I wasn't trying to focus it on me. I was using me as the illustration for the question that I wanted to ask. I didn't say I was trans or anything up front, so that was big. Like, granted, it was probably self-evident, but I wanted to make sure I didn't go, "Oh, I'm this trans person who got attacked. Well, what do you think about that?" Like, I didn't want to do that because I don't think that would have any respect in his world or mine. Really. But what's crazy is leading up to him coming out was a bunch of openers or his friends. I mean, not really openers. They're like amazing comedians. And other than the very first guy, Hassan Aman, which he knows who I am, but like he didn't give me an opening. But everyone else I interacted with. So Brian Simpson came out and he said something about like, "Oh, no one loves me or no one finds me," something. And I said, "I love you, Brian." Or I said, "We love you, Brian," because I was with a friend, Tiffany, who's another comedian. She was really, really cool and really hot. And we're like, "We love you, Brian." He's like, "Who said that?" And I was like, "Me." He goes, "Oh, you bad." And he pointed at me. So it wasn't trans related, which was fun. And he left the stage, and then I think it was James McCann that came out afterwards, and he said something about trans people or something. I was like, "Oh, that's me." I forget how it got on to me, but then he's like, "Oh, you're the one Brian's obsessed with," or something. And I was like, "Yeah, yeah." And then Tony Hinchcliffe came out, and he, of course, recognized me in the front row. And I forget what I said, but something happened, and I just reacted. And he was like, "Oh, of course you're up here. Of course you're up front." He's like, "You're that you're that weirdo who signs up for my show and sits in the front row of my comedy shows instead of sitting in the back like a normal, person." He's like, "But, you're doing it for the attention, which is probably why you transitioned in the first place," which was really funny. And then Shane Gillis came out after, and he said something about trans, and I didn't say anything. I just gestured because he was like something trans and looked towards me, and I was just like, and I went, "Yeah." And so I didn't say anything. I just pointed at myself and smiled. And he goes, "Yeah, nice." And I was like, and he's like, "I know you are." He's like, "I was back there. I could hear you." He's like, "But don't worry, this isn't to be mean. This is fun." And I was like, "Oh, it's fine, like whatever." But it was just funny. So Shane Gillis acknowledged me, Brian Simpson, James McCann, Tony Hinchcliffe. And then I asked my question to Joe Rogan. So I was probably beyond overstaying my welcome. But I was trying not, I wasn't being a heckler. I was waiting for the right opening. I was either reacting to the joke or like the thing where I just kind of pointed at myself. I was like, it like didn't say a word. And just having fun. And it looked like they were having fun with me too. And then after the show, I actually bumped into James McCann at Mitzi's. And yeah, he was just like really cool. He's like, "Oh, I actually heard about you. I heard you did well in Kill Tony and stuff." And I was like, "Really? Well, that's a cool thing." So that was neat. Uh, later that week, I believe it was later that week, I had a spot at Shakespeare's and I did some comedy there. And Miles Johnson, who's a comedian at the Mothership, who I like and I've interacted with a bunch and hugged every time I come in there. He's a really sweet guy. He saw me and heard part of my set or whatever. I came up. He's like, "I didn't know you were a Black Hawk pilot." And I was like, "Yeah, that's like kind of like the whole thing here." He was like, "Oh, interesting, interesting." And then he invited me to get a drink, and he took me next door to Mitzi's, and we went in, and he walked me right up to Tommy Pope, who was standing there drinking, and it was just a good time. Like we had whiskey sours, and the bartender gave Tommy and Miles so much crap for ordering whiskey sours, which was my fault because Miles was like, "What do you like?" I was like, "I like a whiskey sour." And then so he ordered for Tommy and for Miles the same drink. And so the bartender was having to like shake them and, make them and everything and pull out actual eggs and everything to do it properly. And so they were just like ribbing each other the whole time. The bartender was from Philly, and of course Tommy's from Philly, and they're just like ribbing each other. And Tommy was like pretending to be mad at Miles for it and stuff. And it was just fun. And like both the bartender and Tommy asked if I was doing a spot at the Mothership that night, which was very sweet of them to ask. But surely they know I'm not performing there yet. But it's a cool thought, like that they'd be like, "Oh, you must be doing a set here." I'm like, "I wish. Like, let me on stage. Put me in, coach. Put me in." But they didn't. But Tommy recognized me again. I didn't have to introduce myself. He knew who I was. He knew Black Hawk Pilot, all that stuff. Bartender asked about my service. Didn't realize I was a pilot and all that. He also served. And it was just a really good time. And so, and of course, like, Miles wanted to go to sleep, and I gracefully exited, like, trying really hard not to overstay my welcome. I feel like a guest in a lot of these areas, and I'm being given a lot of access and stuff to places that I don't think comedians who are only 6 months in get. And I think a lot of it's because of my wild story. I hope that it's also because I'm interesting and funny, but I think sometimes I approach it a little too much. I think sometimes I come in a little too star power, which I know I'm not. But I think I was getting swept up in the idea that if you just fake it till you make it, right? And so I had to remind myself, like, be a little bit more humble here, like in these interactions with these big names, and know that they'll invite you when they want you to be a part of things. And you don't necessarily have to be asking and for things. Like, I think I had asked a comedian about like the Kill Tony after party invites and how those work. And I think I had asked another comedian about like VIP for the Mothership, and like it was probably like crossing a line, but like I don't know, like I'm such a fan, and so like I was like, well, I'll just ask, like if they'll say no, like I'm not trying to be weird about it. There's like a lot of unspoken rules, I guess, in the comedy world. Me as a 35-year-old coming into this space, having had quote unquote career success in other areas, other industries, being a pilot and IT professional and all those different things, I don't see myself like in the hierarchy that I think other comedians do. And I think that's where it's like a superpower, but then it's also risky at times because it can be read the wrong way. It can be read as entitled maybe because I just have so much confidence about like, no, I've done stuff in my life. Like now I'm here doing this thing, and I'm just going to ask you straight up, can I do this? Can I be on this show? Like, and some people are like, oh, you should wait till you're asked to be those things. Like, don't just ask. I'm like, well, if I don't ask, how will they know that I want it? Because I have asked other people to be on shows, and they're like, yeah, of course, we'd love to have you. Didn't think that you would want to be on it. So it's like just figuring it out. Like, I will I will do, I will bark for 3 hours for 5 minutes. Like, I'm here to tell my story. I'm not here to take anyone's place. I'm not here to take other people's money. Like, I don't want it. I'm here to tell my story and to be that visual representation of a trans person in a space where there's really not many or any in some circles, and show people that we're just normal folks. Like, I mean, we're a little different, but you know what I mean. And so I think people are starting to realize that now a little bit. Um, I was lucky enough to be invited on a podcast. It'll come out soon, so I won't say. And I hope that came across in that podcast as well, because that could be a big like subtle nod to other folks in the circles I want to be in, that I'm here to tell the story. That's it. And if fame and money come with that, that means I can tell it to more people and I can quit my day job and just do that full time. But until then, I've got a job that pays the bills, that I work really hard at. And in my free time, I write jokes and perform and do podcasts and all the other things. So that's a long winded way of saying that I am navigating this new world and trying not to overstay my welcome and trying to be respectful, but also I'm hungry. I'm hungry for this stuff. So I want people to know that, hey, I would like to be on that. Well, you can't be on it yet. Cool. Like, what do I need to do to be on it? Like, what should I work on? Like, I don't mind getting told no. What I don't want to be told is like, oh, you shouldn't ask. Because then it's like, well, why? Why is it offensive to ask? Like, just say no, or tell me what I need to do to earn the spot, because I want to earn it. You know, it's the military. Like, it's clear set. If you do these three things, you get promoted. If you do these three things, you'll be this thing. And it's like, great. Like, lay it out for me, and I will climb the steps. I will knock it out of the park. That's why I don't mind barking for shows. That's why I don't mind promoting, using my own money to promote. I will spend money on Facebook ads to try to fill these shows that I get booked on. Something a lot of comedians don't do, and I know they probably don't have the budget for it. But also on top of that, okay, I'm gonna have to vent a little bit. I'm gonna have to vent a little bit. And maybe it's just because I come from running stuff and you know, being a boss at work all day, and then I come to these shows and the lineups are put together last minute. The how many minutes you're going to get is all last minute. The posting it on Facebook was last minute. And then they lament that there's nobody at their shows. And then they complain. And then they get up there and then they shit on the 5 people that did show up, or they just ask them questions and they don't actually do their material. And I just don't understand. I do not understand. If you're going to run a show and if you're going to have talent there and you're going to book them, run it. Don't look at the audience and be like, oh, there's 3 people from out of town, so I think we should change everything because of that. Oh, there's only 10 people in the audience, so we should talk negative about the whole thing. And then every time someone goes on stage, they should say there's only 10 people in the audience, and then they should say, well, I was going to do my jokes, but instead I'm just going to talk to you. And then what they really end up doing is talking to one person through half of their 10-minute set, killing the entire energy in the room that did exist. There was some, but now there's definitely nothing. And they're all just watching you interview someone. It's like watching a live podcast that's boring because the person's not interesting that they're talking to. They're doing this not really crowd work, actually, because they're not really making jokes. They're like, oh, where are you from? Oh, you like this sports team? Oh, that's great. What kind of, like, they're just asking questions about the country they're from. And I'm not trying to like crap on specific people. This is a trend I'm seeing across many shows that I've been at where attendance might have been low and it's like the whole lineup nukes their own set. Not for the benefit, but to the detriment of not only the room, but every comic that follows that person. And also, like, I just like, why would you just go home then? Like, if that's how you're going to react to it, I don't understand it. Like, if you put on a show and one person shows up and you don't cancel the show, which, you know, like is even also kind of rude. If you don't cancel that show, execute the show as if there's 100 people there. And like, yeah, I get it. There's some things that you could acknowledge in the room that's funny. Like, oh, there's only one person here. You could make a comment and move on. But dude, like you're nuking your own show. It's only going to make you and the venue look bad. It's not going to make anything else better. You're making the venue look bad. You're making yourself look bad. You're making the people in the audience feel like they wasted their time. and their money. And that's the big thing. Even if they didn't pay, you're making them feel like they wasted their time. And then when people start leaving, and then they're like, oh, now more people are leaving. I wonder why. I wonder why. You just told people who came to a party that the party sucks. I just don't get it. I do not get it. Like, am I just ignorant because I've never been in comedy before and I've only been to like theater shows and above as an audience member, and I didn't realize that there was this whole aspect of stand-up comedy where the organizer doesn't organize, the comics shit on the own audience because there's not enough of them, and so then they nuke their own material. They don't even do their own material, and then they talk about how lame it is, and then as people leave, they complain about that too on stage in front of people. Like, what is going on here? Run a show. I think some people have forgotten, and me being such a fan of comedy first, I bring this perspective. So maybe this is where I do bring something in that a lot of these folks don't, is I'm a huge fan of comedy, and I would pay a lot of money and go to a lot of shows. In fact, I've been to over 20 at the Mothership already. Their shows always great. Not complaining about them. I'm complaining about the little shows that I've been put on and the ones I've seen get put on that could be great, but self-sabotaged. And I don't understand it at all. Set up your microphone, set up your room, put the chairs close to the stage. Like, what are you doing with these turned sideways picnic tables and stuff? Like, they're not even facing the stinking comedians. Don't talk so loud that, you know, with your other comedian buddies in the back, that it's so loud that you're distracting the performance. Like, I had to literally tell people to be quiet during my show to the 5 people that were in front of me, because the people in the back, which were all comedians, were yapping so loud that I couldn't hear the 5 people laugh that were right in front of me. I could see them smiling and I could see them doing this at my jokes. And then I got told later that that wasn't even that funny, that like they weren't laughing. And so I got my time cut. I'm like, gee, I wonder, you probably would have heard their laughs if the whole crew back there wasn't out talking. I think it was 2 people by the end, because it's just like, you had someone up here after we barked everybody in that shit on them because there wasn't enough people again, and then they made those comments and they acted like the audience was an idiot for being there because there wasn't many people there, and then they got off stage and then half of them left, and then I go up and that's what I'm left with. That doesn't make any sense to me. Treat it like there's 100 people in the room. Perform like you would perform. I understand, like, it's smart to adjust your set to people and make tweaks here and there. Holy crap, you're a performer. You're not a visionary. You're not a, like a philosophy, like thinker. You are a comedian, like dance clown. Seriously, that's what I'm doing. Get up there and do your act. And if you want to do some of this or some of that, and like, sure. But I know that I don't want to see those shows. And I'm a huge fan of comedy, but I do not want to come to a comedy show where all the comedians, one after another, talk about how crummy the crowd is, talk about how there's not enough people there, and then do long form interviews with people that are left in the crowd because they'd rather do that than do their jokes. Because if there's only 5 people here, I can't tell my jokes. My precious, precious little jokes that if I speak them out to 4 people instead of 50, they're gonna... What? What's gonna happen? I practice in front of a mirror every day. I practice my set in front of a mirror. I watch how I move, I watch how I do things, and I work on it. If you performed to nobody in an empty room, you would get more out of it than shitting on the audience and turning it into some podcast with 2 people in the front row because you feel uncomfortable telling jokes to only 4 people. Like, did you not ever go to open mics that had nobody in the audience, just 1 or 2 other comedians? What did you do there? You just shit on them and then left? Like, every time you get on stage is the chance to either win or learn. And if you don't walk away as a winner, you're supposed to learn something. And if you walk away not learning something and you didn't win, that's on you. There's something there for you to learn. And I don't know why I'm ranting so hard about this. I think it's been built up. It's been built up. Now, I love every producer that's around that I've worked with that's given me time. I'm very thankful. I want them to succeed. That's why I'm venting about this because I think there's a problem. There's a problem around here that be on time to your own show. Like, you're the one organizing this. You need to be on time. Put set lists out the morning of. Like, why does everything have to be last minute? Because when it's last minute, you know what happens? I'll give you an example. I work all day, 7 to 5, my day job. I'm excited to be booked for this thing. I prepared my material. I've rehearsed it. I'm ready to go. I'm told the show starts at 8, and so I get there at 7 or 6 and bark people in for the show. I've got a bunch of people that are interested in me because I've sold them on me. Hey, come in, I will perform. I was on Kill Tony. I'm of all these things, and I really sell them on it. And they're gone before I get in there and get on stage. Because why? I can't tell them when I'll be on because I haven't been given a lineup yet. And when I do finally get the lineup, guess what? I'm up in 30 seconds. So I have to run upstairs, jump on stage, which is fine. I've been in combat. I can handle that. Let's put our best foot forward. None of this is because, something came crashing down and we had to completely adjust our whole show. This is all because it started off with someone who was 10 steps behind their own production. You run a mic, you set it up, you have the lineup. You have the people booked. Like, we don't need to throw these things together last minute. There's no gold ribbon if you can throw things together last minute and turn something out of nothing. The gold ribbon comes from consistent experiences. You are curating a comedy experience for people. And if it's a free show, you cannot put your worst comedians first. Everyone will leave. I don't understand this aspect either. A free show. Let's put our shittiest people up front. Let's put our people who never get laughs. Let's put them all up front. And we'll save our halfway decent people for 45 minutes in. Look, if a couple comes in, they're barked in, and the show is about to start. Oh, start the shows on time, for goodness sake. Or at least within 10 minutes. Because you bark people in, you tell them it starts at 8. It's 8:30, it hasn't started yet. Guess what? They're leaving because they don't feel like their time is valued and they don't feel like anything's going to happen and they've lost trust. So I think that's another issue with free shows. But bring them in. If they can get through one drink and they haven't laughed yet and you've only put your not greatest people first, they're leaving. They're walking out. And then when your good people get on stage, guess how they react? Oh, there's not many people here. Oh, I guess I won't tell my precious jokes. I'll just have to make up shit because that's got to be a better idea. That'll really sell you on me by just not doing the things I wrote, but just making stuff up because I'm acknowledging that there's not many people in the room, which only makes me look bad. Doesn't make any sense. As someone who used to be in bands and would perform to bars that were empty or not interested in hearing our music, we didn't just stop playing halfway through and go, I guess we'll just make up songs because there's not enough people here to hear the songs we wrote and spent months and years writing. We'll just improvise something and see if you like it. Oh, you don't like it? Well, that's something wrong with you then. Could you imagine? Just goofy. Theater play, same thing. Could you imagine if the whole show stopped and just acknowledged that there wasn't enough people in the audience and then said, guess we won't do our actual play. We'll just make up a story instead. It doesn't make any sense. So instead of just bitching like I am about how other people do things, which if that's how you want to do things, I'm not saying you can't. I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm saying remember what you're doing. Think about the why behind it. You're not doing the show so that way you get more stage time. You're doing a show because you want to put together a comedy experience for the public. And if you're not going to charge a ticket price, you need to stack your lineup with the best people first and then slowly get worse as people get drunk. Okay? Like, reverse the lineup. Put your best people first. I just don't understand it. And put your lineup out there ahead of time. Hours if possible. That way, comics can plan where they're going to be that night. They can do a spot here. They know they need to be here at this time. They can do that. And they can actually organize their lives. Or in my case, I can figure out when I need to drive downtown, figure out when I need to be off work, so that I have time to practice, rehearse, and be ready. I understand things happen and that might cause an issue here and there. It might cause a hiccup and nothing's going to be perfect. But when your whole shows are just being run like this, and there's people not doing this, there's people running tight shows. And that's when I'm just like, why? Why are we not doing that everywhere? So I'm going to run a show. And guess what? I will probably make half of these mistakes myself. No, I joke. Hopefully not. But I'm humble enough to know that like I am not in their shoes and it might not be as easy as I'm saying. So I'm putting the money where my mouth is and I'm going to run my own show. I've been given the opportunity to pilot a show at the Creek in the Cave, January 26th. It's called Friendly Fire with Joe Ellis. It's a late night style talk show that has a comedy showcase element and then an anonymous Q&A portion at the end where all the comics that were on that night sit as a panel. And it's kind of like bottom of the barrel meets a little bit of Kill Tony roast, a little bit of off the cuff, just riffing and answering questions in a fun way. So I will open the show with a monologue like a Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon type style monologue. And then I'll immediately bring on a comic and they'll get 5 minutes. And then I'll interview them for 5 minutes one-on-one. And then the next comic and the next comic for 3 cycles. And then I'll invite everyone else back on stage. We'll sit together. And during the entire show, the audience was either writing or submitting through QR code questions for either the comedian or me or just stuff in general that they want to talk about. And then we'll just pull those out at random and just talk about them, answer them, riff on them and stuff. And so I think it'll be good. It's a format that I haven't seen. And it's inspired a little bit by not only Kill Tony and Bottom of the Barrel, but also the Blue Collar Comedy Tour. At the end of the Blue Collar Comedy Tour, all the comedians came back on stage and they tried to make each other laugh. And that became a huge part of that show. And that was actually something that they didn't think was going to work, ended up being a huge hit, versus doing like, some orchestrated song at the end or something, or some scripted banter. And so I'm taking some elements of that too. Like if I get the kind of comedians I think I'm going to get, hopefully booked on this, people will be generally interested in seeing them interact and just talk about their day and what's going on and answering questions and just existing. So I have Rachel Wolfson booked. I'm really excited. She's a great comedian here, regular at the Mothership, and also she was in the movie Jackass, which is really cool. And I have put out requests to some other names. It's a little early, so I don't have confirms yet, so we'll see. It'd be cool to have them. If not, I think I could find some other folks that I would love to have as well. It's on a Monday night, a Kill Tony night, so I will miss one sign up of Kill Tony, unfortunately. But that does mean I have a lot of comedians available to pick from because they're not usually booked on Monday nights. And I am paying them. It is a paid spot, and I am recording the whole thing with 2 cameras so I can post to YouTube later. And so they'll get a copy of that as well. And so I think that's something different I'm bringing to the show running stuff here, is that I am new to this, but I'm also treating it as professional as I can, as in I'm going to pay you if you're on it. If you're working for me, I'm paying you. If I hire you, like I'm going to pay. I'm going to advertise. I'm going to use paid Facebook and Instagram advertising like to get this out there. I just want to give it the best chance of success. And so it'll be fun. We'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, I will be at the Vulcan December 26th, and that'll be a good show. That'll be 10 minutes. So I'm excited for that. Nothing else booked yet, so we'll see. But a lot can happen. Other life updates. I am probably moving here permanently. We'll see what happens with my day job if I can get that arranged. But I became an empty nester last year, which is a good thing. Like I'm glad, but also I'm glad that my kid is trying to do things on her own and stuff. I don't mean I'm glad that she's gone, but I'm glad that she's wanted to be an adult and do her own thing and live on her own with her friends and stuff. She was always welcome. She could come back if she wanted, but I think now with everything going on and I'm not in the military anymore, so I no longer have a tie to Virginia, and I'm really loving trying things here. We'll see how my show goes January, the one I'm trying to run, but if things go well enough to make me think it's worth it, I think February I'm going to move out of my house, move all my stuff out and put it up for sale, cash out, simplify my life, my finances, live more minimalist, just so I have the flexibility to take these comedy opportunities. And I think that'll help a lot. And I'm having fun. I'm having so much fun, even with all the stuff I was complaining about. Like, it's wild and fun. I'm meeting great people. Even the people that book those chaotic shows are fun to be around. I don't have anything against them. I just think, rightfully so. They don't have the kind of project management approach or military approach, which probably gives them some advantages in some areas, whereas I might be too regimented and too corporate-y in some ways that I think maybe doesn't give me the artist flair, but I can also get stuff done. And so I'm excited to bring that into this community here. And I want them to succeed. I've been giving advice to folks and trying to like help them out when they ask. Like, I don't badmouth them, like them personally. Like, it has nothing to do with that. I just like, hey, like, this show wasn't run well. Let's run it better next time. Like, I don't think that's, as long as they're mature, I think they can understand that that's me wanting it to go better for all of us. And I think if we bring that an approach and we bring a community aspect, rising tide will raise all ships. And that's how I feel. And so that's what I'm trying to bring. As far as some of the other stuff that happened in the news, like Rob Reiner, like being murdered, that was awful. And it was just awful to see Trump's reaction to it. Like, it was funny because so many people were like, see, conservatives know how to respond when something tragic happens. And then the president posted something nutty about it. And I just don't get it. Yeah, there wasn't a bunch of conservatives celebrating it, but the leader of their party was very inappropriate. So it's like, have we realized that it's both sides? Like, have we realized that both sides suck? Because, it's just, if your algorithm isn't showing you your side being bad or being what you oppose, you should probably look at what silos you're in, because both sides are doing it. But if you're a Democrat and you didn't see anyone doing anything inappropriate about Charlie Kirk's murder, you need to check yourself. Because there was a lot of a lot of people who vote liberally, I guess, people on the left, you can assume, were horrible in reaction to that. And then the same on the right. If you don't see people being the things that the right can be accused of, if you don't ever see it, you're not looking. You're in a silo. Because the own leader of your party did exactly what people were fired for with Charlie Kirk, did it about Rob Reiner. And so I'm not here to say which side is better. I think you all know that I am no fan of the president because I lost my dream job as being a pilot because of him. But also I wasn't a fan of Biden either, or the way that they tried to run Harris at the end, and they didn't do a primary. So both sides are terrible. It's all WWE wrestling. It's all ridiculous and stupid. And comedy and podcasting has become way more powerful than it ever should in the political space. And that's because our politicians have abdicated their responsibilities. They're not doing their job. So we're looking to clowns like me to give people answers, because we're the only ones that are speaking honestly and authentically. Even if we're wrong, we're not necessarily trying to be wrong or trying to sell you on anything. We're just being ourselves, other than selling tickets to our shows. December 26th at the Vulcan. Get tickets now. Link in bio, or you can go to the Vulcan website. But yeah, it's weird. It's a weird world we're in. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to drop in here before I'm done. I'm sorry this is a long update, but it's just been a while and I've been so busy. Lots of things going on. No, I think I covered it all. Thank you all so much for listening, and those that leave comments and tell me when I need to be told, like, hey, like, you're supposed to be entertaining us and you're not lively enough. See, I get that feedback too, and I need that too. So feel free to jump in and tell me what you want to see and what you want to see more of. I started this mostly because I wanted to give people updates on this crazy journey that I'm doing, but then also for the documentary I'm going to be in that's still filming right now. It won't be out until like 2027. They had asked me to do video journals and record myself just talking about what's going on. And so I'm trying to kill two birds with one stone here and not burn myself out generating content, because I do a lot and I'm in so many places and trying to do so many things that I'm using this as that. So all of these that I've done could be used in the documentary because they want those journals. Excuse me. And so sometimes I just hit record and just talk, and it's not very exciting because I'm not trying to necessarily be those things. And then I'm posting it to YouTube because I have the content, so why not post it? And so I'm going to try to be a little bit more of all the things I think this could be. But really, this podcast is all about just me documenting my journey and talking about things that are on my mind, whether that's politics or whatever. Um, and so, if you want me to talk about something specific or you have questions, drop them in the comments, and I'll either do an episode where I cover them, or I'll just jump in the comments and answer because I like to do that too. And so, I'm here to hopefully educate, but also inspire and entertain people. And at the end of the day, if you're going to come to my comedy show, I want you to have a good experience. And I'm going to perform as if there's 100 of you, or 1,000 of you, or 5,000 of you, even if there's only one of you. And I think that's the lesson we should take away from this, that no matter what you do it as if train like you fight, as we say in the army. Like, always do it with intention. Always give it your best. Always show up, work hard. Like, don't half-ass things. And don't second guess yourself. If you've got good material, deliver it. Deliver it to one person. See what that's like. You'll learn something. That's got to be better than just asking them where they're from 100 times. Anyhow, where are you all from?